I remember the exact moment that I realized that I did not want to work a 9 to 5. I was in the 6th grade. I was about 11 years old, I believe. And I went to my dad and asked him if I could get my ears pierced. Now, that's something I had been wanting for a while. And, clearly, as you can see, I've done that and then some. But, I wanted to get my ears pierced because I thought it looked cool. And so I went up to him and asked him, more so as a courtesy because I assumed he would say yes, because in my mind, it's my body, so I should be able to do whatever I want with it. But to my surprise, he said no. And I remember I was so distraught and I couldn't figure out why he said no. So I asked him, why can't I get my ears pierced? It's my body. I should be able to do whatever I want to do with it. It doesn't concern you and it doesn't affect you. I'm paying for it. All I ask is that you sign the approval. And he refused. And the justification that he gave me was that when I got older and I graduated college and went out to find a job, they would discriminate against me on the basis of my body modifications. Now, for the longest time, I thought he was just BSing me. Okay, I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I thought he was BSing me and, he just didn't want me to get them. And so that's what he was telling me. But obviously, he had corporate experience, whereas I didn't. So all I could do was take him at his word until I went and got my first job. Now, fast forward a few years, I'm finishing up my sophomore year in high school, and I finally get him to budge. Okay, I get my ears pierced. And that following summer, I went to my very first job interview with IHOP. Okay, IHOP. I'm talking bottom of the barrel type of job. And this is no disrespect to anybody who works at IHOP, because like I said, I worked there once myself. But, I was doing an interview to be a busser. If you don't know what a busser is, basically they're glorified janitors, at least in my case. Okay, you go in at about 7 o'clock in the morning and you clean the bathrooms. Okay, people throwing up and all types of random stuff in the bathrooms, you have to clean that up. Mopping, sweeping the floors, taking out the trash. Okay, the trash is heavy, throwing your back out, you're tired, all of that. You're cleaning up the tables, people leaving food all over the tables, on the seats, on the floors. You're the one cleaning up all of that stuff. Like I said, a glorified janitor. So I go to the interview for that job, and the guy basically hires me on the spot, okay, because nobody else wants to work there. Okay, nobody wants to work at that job. So if you've never been to a job interview before, at the end, they'll typically ask you if you have any questions for them. And I had one question for him. Can I wear my earrings to work? And he told me, no, you cannot. That's against the dress code. And right there, that's when I had that epiphany. That's when I realized, okay, if they won't let me wear them, then no other job is going to let me wear them either. Because like I said, IHOP is bottom of the barrel. I'm talking about $7.75 an hour, and they won't let me wear them. So I remember I left that interview with the intention of not taking that job. Okay, I had no plans of taking that job because I did not want to compromise on my principles and, everything that I stood for. Because I remember telling my dad before, even in the 6th grade, that there is no way I would ever work for anybody that would not let me wear what I wanted to wear, or that would not let me make any body modifications that I wanted to make to my body. Because I believe that if you're able to perform the task up to their standards, then your appearance really doesn't matter. But, as I began to tell people why I wasn't going to take the job, of course, they all thought that I was crazy, and I let them all peer pressure me into taking that job. And it turned out to be the worst job of my life. Granted, I'm glad that I worked at that job because it gave me a good sense of what it's like to actually work and put in that type of manual labor. But that whole experience from 6th grade to my first job set that foundation for me as far as the mindset that I have today in terms of not wanting to work for other people. The next experience that I had that really shaped my mindset to what it is now was when I went to college. Now, it's worth noting that I graduated a semester early. I graduated at 17 years old in January as opposed to June. Okay, so a few months early, and I used that extra time to not only get another job, because at this point I had quit IHOP months before. But also I took this time to learn about entrepreneurship because this is something that they didn't really teach me about in school. I don't know if your schools had those types of classes or if you guys had that exposure at a young age. I didn't, okay? Because nobody in my life was an entrepreneur. Nobody in my life worked for themselves, including my teachers. Okay, your teachers aren't going to be able to tell you how to be an entrepreneur because they work for other people. And of course, there are exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, most teachers are teachers, and that's it. So I didn't have that exposure to entrepreneurship until that gap semester. During that time, I began to read books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I began to watch videos that helped me understand that you don't just have to trade in your time for money. When I was working at IHOP, I had this mindset that if I want more money to go and buy those new Jordans, I need to pick up an extra shift. I need to put in some overtime. That mindset, it works, but it's not sustainable because you will burn yourself out at some point or another. So as I began to learn this information during that gap semester, it all started to make sense to me. It all started to add up. And I realized that there is another way out there beyond working, beyond the 9 to 5. Now, despite having gained this knowledge, I still didn't have the confidence within myself to actually go out and pursue that other path because everyone around me was pursuing the traditional path. So because I didn't have that confidence, I ended up going to college. Okay, now college was another awakening period for me because the amount of work that I put in when I was in college, community college, mind you, this is just community college, not even a university, none of that. Okay, this is not Ivy League, not even a state school. Community college with a 100% acceptance rate. And I remember I was putting in all of this work, late nights, doing this homework, staying after class, all of these different things. And in the back of my mind, I always knew that I could be putting in that same amount of work somewhere else and doing something that I wanted to do with my life. Because by this point, I had realized that I didn't want any part of the 9 to 5 lifestyle. Okay, so essentially I'm in college, putting in all of this extra work, time, effort, and energy, working for a goal that I don't even want. And this is when depression began to set in. Okay, and that was a very dark period in my life, but I'm very glad that I went through it because that is what inspired me to drop out. I took that leap of faith on myself because I realized I can't live my life like that. I realized that I would be hustling backwards. I'm literally paying tens of thousands of dollars to go get a degree so that I can get a job to pay the school back. And I couldn't make that compute in my head. It never made sense to me. To this day, it still doesn't make sense to me. Because I knew I wasn't passionate about anything that they had to offer. Because none of it involved working for myself. College was not going to get me to where I wanted to be in life, which is where I am now. So I took that leap of faith on myself. And in March of 2019, I dropped out of college. And probably a week later, I made my first sit-down face-to-face video talking to the camera. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with YouTube, and I've been posting consistently ever since then. Now, my path to YouTube success did not come without adversity. Okay, I experienced quite a bit of adversity along my path. And part of that was having to swallow my pride and go work another job just to fund my dreams. But I had a different level of motivation at this time. I realized that I wasn't working for the sake of working and surviving. I was working to make my dreams come true. I was working to buy all of the equipment and software and knowledge that I needed to get to where I am right now today. Even though I was working for someone else, I knew deep down that I was working for myself. Now, whenever I got my job at H&M, okay, this was July of 2019, so a few months later after I started YouTube, I told myself when I was putting in the application, when I was doing the interview, that was the last time I would ever have to do that in my life. That was the last time I was ever going to go through the process of putting in a job application, having to study for this interview, and ace this interview so that I can start working. This was the last orientation I was going to do at work. This was the last everything that involved working for someone else. Now, I don't want you guys to get it confused. H&M was not a bad job by any means. H&M was actually by far the best job I had ever worked at. The job itself was great. and I hated it. I hated it. I tried my very best to come in with a positive attitude, but eventually I just couldn't. I couldn't do it anymore. And March 2020, a year after I dropped out of school, I quit that job. And I remember when I quit that job, I told myself that my next paycheck was going to come from YouTube. Now you guys have to understand that the outlook at that time didn't seem very promising. Okay, I had about $700 to my name, $600, $700, and I only had like 700 subscribers. And I was nowhere near getting monetized, or so I thought. But I took that leap of faith on myself. I followed my intuition. And I took that same work ethic from college, that same work ethic from IHOP, that same work ethic from every other job I had ever worked, and all of my time in school. And I applied it towards YouTube and working on myself, becoming the best version of myself that I can be. And this is where I am right now. As of June 2021, I'm sitting here with over 50,000 subscribers, and I'm making way more than I ever made at any job. But this didn't happen by accident. Okay, this was through intention. I set the intentions and I did what I needed to do to see them into fruition. And that's the main point that I'm trying to drive home with this video, is that you don't have to take the traditional route to be successful. Okay, you don't have to put in all of this work for other people just to make it in life. If you take that same level of effort that you're putting in for school, for working for somebody else's dreams, and you put it towards your own dreams, you can accomplish great things in life. You can accomplish anything that you set your mind to. All you have to do is make that decision. You can't get around the hard work. There's no way to get around that. You're gonna have to work hard at whatever you do. So you might as well make it something worth your effort. You might as well set goals that are actually meaningful to you and what you want out of your life. Like I said, I knew deep down from the very beginning that I did not belong in the corporate world. I didn't belong in that 9-to-5 culture. No disrespect and no offense to anybody who's a part of that. If that's what you love, then by all means, do you. But if you know that that's not what you want, then you owe it to yourself to take that leap of faith. Because you don't want to be on your deathbed wondering, what if? What if I had taken that leap of faith? I'm at a point right now where I'm 21 years old, I'm working for myself, and guess what? I can wear whatever the hell I want, because as long as I turn this camera on and provide value to you guys, that's all that matters. I'm doing my job, and that's the best thing about the way that I'm living, is that my life is mine. My life is mine. I control everything in my life. The money, that's nice, but the freedom is what I truly sought after. And to be able to get that at the age of 20, okay, I've been making money off YouTube since I was 20 years old. And now I'm 21 and, I'm just leveling up every single month. And I'm grateful for it, but I want you guys to know that that wasn't by accident. That was through intention. That was through me taking chances on myself and deciding that I was going to go after something that truly meant something to me. I'm not going to work for other people's dreams. I'm going to put in that work for my own life and for the fulfillment of my own dreams and help other people do the same thing by making videos like this one.